Earth's defense satellites exploded in balls of fire against the night sky. The Voxari warships, colossal and bristling with advanced weaponry, blasted through the debris fields like a sledgehammer through paper. Bruce Powell, Earth's most skilled diplomat, held a tablet in his hands. The device was flashing an urgent message from Earth's Defense Council about this imminent alien threat. The powerful Voxari Empire, led by the ruthless Emperor Primus, had set its sights on conquering Earth. Humanity faced a stark choice: total, unconditional surrender or complete annihilation. Bruce rushed to an emergency meeting at the United Nations. Inside the Grand Assembly Hall, world leaders were engaged in heated arguments, their voices echoing off the marble walls. How should Earth respond to the Voxari's impossible ultimatum? Opinions were deeply divided. Some wanted to wave the white flag of surrender, to spare human lives through submission. Others demanded resistance, refusing to bow to alien invaders without a fight. Bruce strode to the central podium and grabbed the microphone. He began arguing passionately, his voice booming through the chamber. Humanity could not fracture and capitulate to fear. Not now. They must stand united against the Voxari threat. Earth needed to send one final warning to Primus: abandon the campaign of conquest or suffer the unrelenting wrath of the human species. Murmurs of support slowly built to a crescendo of approval. Bruce's words resonated, slicing through doubt and cowardice. A flicker of hope danced in the eyes of the delegates. A spark of defiance flared. With a unanimous vote, the world leaders decided to transmit the warning to the Voxari armada poised at the fringes of our solar system. Earth would resist subjugation at all costs. Light years away, Emperor Primus sneered as he read the human message. Did the pitiful Earthlings truly believe they stood a chance against the galaxy-spanning Voxari Empire? His warships had crushed countless alien civilizations beneath their hulls. One primitive blue planet would hardly prove a challenge. Primus signaled his awaiting fleet with a mere flick of his clawed finger. The Voxari force, a sea of angular metallic shapes, surged towards Earth. Grim anticipation suffused the air as the ships prepared to unleash their first crushing salvo. As the alien juggernaut approached, loudspeakers on Earth crackled to life in cities across the globe. Bruce addressed humanity, coordinating planetary defense systems. He worked with generals and admirals worldwide to prepare for a desperate last stand. Pilots rushed to their fighters. Soldiers took up arms. Missile silos opened in remote tundras. Bruce knew Earth was grossly outmatched in this galactic war. The Voxari's technology seemed like magic against humanity's comparatively primitive spacecraft and weapons. By every metric, the odds were hopeless. But Bruce had no choice. He would not allow his people to be slaughtered or enslaved. He would find a way. Through sheer human tenacity and valor and sacrifice, he would orchestrate a miracle. The alternative was too horrific to contemplate. If humanity fell this day, it would be forever. The stakes were apocalyptic. The survival of human civilization itself hung by a fraying thread. As the Voxari warships loomed in Earth's skies, the very future of humankind balanced on a razor's edge. Bruce fought down his fear, steadying himself for the coming storm. For the sake of his species, for the posterity of Earth, he could not fail. Somehow, some way, humanity would triumph, or it would die trying. On the bridge of his flagship, General Zorgax sneers as the human defenses crumble before his onslaught. His vanguard fleet punches through the feeble Terran ships, scattering their broken hulls. Drop pods rain down on Earth's cities, disgorging hordes of gene-bred Voxari supersoldiers. The invasion has begun. Though, in the UN command bunker, a haggard Bruce slams down the phone. Another front has collapsed. Voxari troops march relentlessly through the streets, energy rifles crackling as they gun down fleeing civilians. Hulking alien war mechs stride through the rubble, vaporizing human tanks with contemptuous ease. Bruce turns to the ashen-faced generals around him. We need to disperse. They're coming for us. Get to the shelters and coordinate the resistance from there. As if on cue, the bunker shakes. Dust sifts from the ceiling. The Voxari have found them. Bruce pulls up a flickering holo display of the Armada's positions. The bulk of the Voxari fleet has taken the bait, plunging into the asteroid belt where the human ambush awaits. For a moment, a faint hope kindles in Bruce's eyes. If they can just bloody the Voxari nose, buy a little time. The bunker's walls shudder again, more violently. The muffled screech of straining metal echoes through the corridors. They're cutting through the blast doors. Bruce whirls to a waiting commando team, their battered power armor still thrumming with energy. Get the other leaders out now. We can't let them be captured. The soldiers hesitate. Bruce waves them off furiously. Go, damn you! Earth needs you, not me. I'll buy you time. Anguished, the troopers salute and hurry the politicians to the emergency tunnels. Bruce turns back to the holodisplay, his mind racing. The bunker's defenses won't hold long against the Voxari onslaught. He has to make every second count. His fingers fly over the display, coordinating redeployments, ordering supply dumps destroyed before they fall into enemy hands. The ground shakes constantly now as the aliens draw closer. Bruce keys in one final transmission to the human fleet commanders. Hit them with everything we've got. No retreat. No surrender. We hold the line, whatever it takes. Earth will not fall. Drawing his sidearm, Bruce strides to the bunker's armored gateway. He takes up position beside the few remaining guards, their weapons trained on the crumpling blast doors. With a tortured shriek of rending metal, the doors explode inward. Voxari super soldiers surge into the breach, autoguns chattering. The human defenders open fire, Bruce blasting away grimly with his pistol. Aliens fall under the hail of gunfire, but more keep coming, heedless of losses. The defenders die one by one, armor cracking under the onslaught. Bruce ducks under an energy bolt and keeps shooting until his gun clicks empty. Tossing it aside, he picks up a fallen rifle and blasts another alien before a hammer blow to his chest sends him sprawling. His armor sparks and smokes, warnings flash on his HUD. Breach imminent. Through blurring vision, Bruce sees a monstrous armored shape stride through the smoke, crackling power glaive in hand. General Zorgax himself, come to claim his prize. The warlord's skull-like face leers down as he raises his glaive for the killing blow. Bruce wrenches a grenade from his belt and hurls it with the last of his strength. Zorgax grunts in surprise as the explosion slams him backwards. Ears ringing, Bruce drags himself toward the inner security doors. If he can just seal the command center, maybe the resistance can still prevail. He crawls doggedly, trailing blood, his legs not working. Armored claws seize him from behind. Zorgax hauls Bruce up by his neck, choking the life from him. The alien's glaive hovers before Bruce's face, humming with lethal energy. Pitiful earthling, Zorgax sneers. You actually thought you could defy us? Your species is already extinct. You just don't know it yet. Through the encroaching darkness, Bruce croaks his defiance. We'll fight you. To the last breath. To the last man. Earth will prevail. Zorgax's hideous laughter echoes through the bunker as Bruce's struggling weakens. The warlord's glaive descends. Bruce's vision swam as Zorgax's glaive descended, but the killing blow never came. A deafening roar shook the bunker, and the world erupted into chaos. Evacuate now! Bruce shouted into his comm, his voice hoarse. Protocol Omega! As Voxari troops poured through the breach, Bruce and the remaining defenders unleashed a hail of gunfire. They fought tooth and nail, buying precious seconds for Earth's leaders to escape. Bruce slammed his palm on a hidden panel, sealing blast doors throughout the complex. He punched in a code, initiating the self-destruct sequence. Alarms blared. 10 minutes to detonation, an automated voice announced. Zorgax bellowed orders to his warriors as they hacked at the doors. Bruce and his squad fell back, leaving traps and automated turrets in their wake. Sir, we can't hold them, a soldier yelled over the din. We don't need to, Bruce replied. Just long enough. They retreated to the final chamber. Bruce's fingers flew over a console, erasing data. The doors buckled under Voxari weapons fire. It's been an honor, Bruce told his team. The doors burst open. Voxari poured in, auto guns blazing. Human defenders fell. Bruce emptied his rifle into the attackers, then drew his sidearm. A colossal boom shook the facility. The floor heaved, concrete cracked. A blinding flash seared Bruce's retinas. Then darkness. Bruce regained consciousness buried in rubble. Pain lanced through his body. He could barely move, but he was alive. Through a gap in the debris, he saw Voxari corpses. No sign of Zorgax. The tactical nuke had vaporized the alien vanguard, along with Bruce's brave rearguard. He activated his emergency beacon and waited. Hours later, rescuers dug him out. They rushed him to a hidden medical facility deep underground. As he recovered, reports flowed in. Earth cities burned. Voxari walkers stalked the streets, but humanity endured. Then came a transmission from Earth's science team. They'd found a vulnerability in Voxari wormhole tech. Bruce's mind raced. This could change everything. From his hospital bed, Bruce contacted what remained of Earth's space fleet. "Abandon Earth," he ordered. "Strike the Voxari power source. Hit their artificial black hole with everything we've got." Days later, battered human ships emerged in Voxari space. They unleashed a barrage of antimatter torpedoes at the containment fields. Alarms blared throughout the Voxari fleet. On his flagship, Emperor Primus received the news with shock. "All ships return to defend the core," he commanded. As Voxari forces raced home, Bruce saw his chance. He rose from his sickbed, ignoring protests from doctors. There was no time to waste. "Ready every ship we have left," Bruce ordered. "We're taking the fight to Voxari Prime." A ragtag fleet of Earth vessels assembled. Converted cargo ships, civilian craft with hastily mounted weapons. And at their head, Bruce's flagship, a patchwork battleship held together by spit and hope. As they neared Voxari space, Bruce addressed the fleet. "This is our last shot," he said. "We either win here or Earth falls. Give it everything you've got." The human armada dropped out of FTL, Voxari Prime looming before them. But the Voxari weren't caught entirely off guard. As Bruce's sensors lit up with enemy contacts, he realized this fight was just getting started. On the Voxari throne world, Emperor Primus rallied his elite guards. "Crush these vermin!" he snarled. "Show them the price of defiance." Bruce gripped his command chair as enemy fire lashed out. The final battle for Earth's survival had begun. The human fleet tore through Voxari Prime's orbital defenses like a swarm of angry hornets. Antimatter torpedoes blazed brilliant trails across the void, slamming into Voxari battle stations. Explosions bloomed silently in the vacuum as entire sections of the orbital fortresses crumbled. Bruce stood on the bridge of his flagship, mind focused as he watched the battle unfold on tactical displays. "Press the attack! Don't let up!" he barked. Waves of fighter drones swarmed around the larger capital ships, their weapons fire stitching deadly patterns across Voxari hulls. As a gap opened in the defensive screen, Bruce saw his chance. "All dropships, launch now. Hit that opening before they can plug it." Hundreds of assault craft streamed from the hangars of human vessels, burning hard for the planet's surface. Bruce's flagship led the charge, engines straining as they plunged into Voxari Prime's atmosphere. The air ignited around them as they punched through, sonic booms thundering in their wake. But as they neared the ground, all hell broke loose. Concealed plasma cannons opened up, their searing beams lancing through the air. Entire squadrons of dropships vanished in actinic flashes. Those that made it through that firestorm found themselves face to face with towering Voxari combat walkers. "Evasive maneuvers!" Bruce shouted, as a plasma bolt narrowly missed his ship. He watched in horror as friendly craft disintegrated all around him, Marines dying before they could even set foot on the ground. "Sir, we're getting slaughtered down here." The frantic voice of a ground commander crackled over the comms. Bruce smacked his head on his chair. "Damn it, all ships in orbit. Commence bombardment of the surface defenses. Use everything we've got." A rain of tactical nukes fell from the sky. Mushroom clouds sprouted across the Voxari capital, leveling entire districts. The Citadel's energy shields flickered and failed under the onslaught. For a moment, Bruce allowed himself to hope. Then alarms blared throughout his ship. "Massive energy spike detected," a sensor officer shouted. "Some kind of experimental weapon." Bruce's eyes widened as he saw the antimatter warhead streaking toward his fleet. "All ships, break off." His words were cut short as reality itself seemed to tear apart. A miniature sun blossomed in orbit, consuming Bruce's flagship and its escorts in an instant. On the planet's surface, shell-shocked human troops stared in disbelief at the inferno that had claimed their leader and orbital support. As that terrible light faded, leaving only floating debris, a palpable wave of despair washed over the invasion force. Seizing the moment, Primus's elite guard counterattacked with savage fury. Human lines buckled under the assault, troops falling back in disarray. All seemed lost. Then, emerging from the lingering atomic fire like a phoenix, came a battered human stealth destroyer. Its hull was scorched and pitted, but it still flew. And on its bridge stood Bruce Powell, having cheated death once more. He took in the tactical situation at a glance, his mind racing. There was only one play left. "Engineering, I need you to reconfigure our remaining nukes," Bruce ordered. "We're going to deliver them straight to Primus's front door." As the crew rushed to comply, Bruce gripped the arms of his chair. One last roll of the dice. Either humanity would prevail here, or Earth would fall. There was no middle ground left. Bruce's fingers flew across the control panel, sweat beading on his brow as he input the final commands. The nuclear warheads hummed to life, their countdown timers syncing with deadly precision. He glanced at the tactical display, watching the blinking dot of his stealth destroyer as it hurtled towards Primus's citadel. "This is General Powell to all human forces," he barked into the comm. "Fall back immediately. I repeat, clear the blast radius. Authorization code Omega-7 Delta." The destroyer shuddered as it plunged through Voxari Prime's atmosphere. Bruce gripped the controls, guiding the ship on its final approach. The cloaking field crackled and sparked, straining against the heat of re-entry. Through the view screen, he saw the gleaming spires of the Voxari capital. Smoke rose from countless impact craters, evidence of the earlier orbital bombardment. As they neared the palace, Bruce's eyes locked onto the massive transparasteel dome of the throne room. "Brace for impact," he muttered, more to himself than the ship's computer. The destroyer smashed through the dome in a shower of crystalline shards. Alarms blared as the ship skidded across the polished floor, leaving a trail of twisted metal in its wake. Bruce's head slammed against the console, blood trickling from a gash on his forehead. He stumbled from the cockpit, drawing his sidearm. The throne room was chaos. Voxari guards scrambled for cover, their chitinous armor clattering. At the far end of the chamber, Emperor Primus rose from his ornate throne, mandibles clicking in fury. "Kill the human!" Primus screeched. Bruce dove behind a fallen pillar as energy bolts sizzled past. He returned fire, his shots finding their mark in the vulnerable joints of Voxari battle armor. 2 guards fell, ichor spurting from their wounds. The nuclear missiles streaked from the destroyer's launch bays, leaving trails of acrid smoke. Bruce's eyes widened as he saw Primus turn to flee. He lunged from cover, tackling a Voxari warrior and using the alien's bulk as a shield. "Not this time, you bastard," Bruce snarled, squeezing off shot after shot to keep the missile's targeting systems locked on the fleeing Emperor. Primus reached the threshold of an escape tunnel. He turned, compound eyes glittering with hatred as he faced his nemesis one last time. A blinding flash engulfed the throne room. Bruce felt the heat sear his skin, heard the roar of the detonation, then silence. The blast wave rippled outward, vaporizing the palace citadel and everyone inside. Where once stood the seat of Voxari power, now gaped a smoldering crater. Across Voxari Prime, vid screens flickered with emergency broadcasts. Panicked voices spoke of the Emperor's death, of the human kamikaze attack that had decapitated the Empire's leadership. In orbit, the remaining human vessels received garbled transmissions from their ground forces. Captain Elena Chen of the frigate Defiant listened in disbelief as reports flooded in. "All units, this is Chen," she announced, her voice steady despite the shock. "General Powell has succeeded. Emperor Primus is dead. Commence Operation Downfall. Hit every strategic target you can find. The Voxari are in disarray. Let's finish this." Cheers erupted across the comm channels as human troops rallied. Dropships descended on key military installations, their marines catching the defenders off guard. Antimatter warheads streaked towards Voxari fleet anchorages, shattering their remaining naval strength. On a dozen occupied worlds, Voxari garrison commanders found themselves cut off from central authority. Arguments broke out in command centers as junior officers vied for control. Some advocated surrender, others called for a scorched earth retreat. Amidst the chaos, human resistance cells emerged from hiding. They struck at vulnerable supply depots, communication hubs, and collaborator enclaves. The Voxari war machine, once seemingly unstoppable, ground to a stuttering halt. In the halls of Earth's emergency government, the surviving human leaders convened. Admiral Juarez, her uniform still stained with ash from the bunker attack, addressed her colleagues. "Bruce Powell has given us a chance," she said, her voice hoarse. "One last shot at turning this war around. I'm calling in every ship, every soldier we've got left. We hit the Voxari now before they can regroup." She turned to the strategic display, watching as Allied fleet vectors converged on Voxari space. "This is it," Juarez continued. "Our final push, for Earth, for Bruce, for every human life lost to these monsters. We end this now or we die trying." Admiral Juarez's words echoed through the war room as reports flooded in from across Voxari space. The Empire's carefully orchestrated command structure crumbled in the wake of Emperor Primus's death. On Kradex, a factory world choked with smog, alarms blared as slave laborers overwhelmed their overseers. Cal-17, a scarred human who'd spent years toiling in the munitions plant, led the charge. He smashed the control panel, shutting down the assembly line. "For Earth!" Cal shouted, his voice hoarse from years of breathing toxic fumes. Thousands of workers surged forward, wielding improvised weapons. The Voxari guards, caught off guard by the sudden uprising, fell back in disarray. Meanwhile, on the prison planet Tanrith, resistance fighters struck under cover of darkness. Sarah Chen, a former pilot-turned-guerrilla leader, cut the power to Cell Block D. As emergency lights flickered, she blasted the lock mechanisms. "Move! Move! Move!" Sarah yelled, ushering political prisoners into the night. Confused Voxari wardens stumbled out of their barracks, only to be met with a hail of stolen blaster fire. In orbit above Earth, Admiral Terrence Hale stood on the bridge of the flagship Defiant. Holographic displays showed hundreds of ships converging from a dozen liberated worlds. "All vessels, form up," Hale commanded, his voice steady. "We have one shot at this. The Zorvax system is our target. That's where we break the Voxari war machine once and for all." The human armada dropped out of FTL above Zorvax 3, weapons hot. Swarms of robotic drones poured from launch bays, overwhelming Voxari point defenses in a steel tsunami. "Now!" Hale barked. Lances of antimatter fire stabbed out from human capital ships, carving molten furrows across orbital shipyards. Voxari energy shields flickered and died under the assault. Captain Elena Chen watched from her frigate's bridge as suicide ships plowed into Voxari battle stations. The strikers' hulls glowed white-hot on impact, breaching the massive fortresses. "All ships, fire nuclear salvos," Chen ordered. Warheads streaked through the gaps, detonating in silent flashes that shattered the orbital defenses. On Zorvax 4, dropships disgorged wave after wave of android troops. Their metal feet clanked against ferrocrete as they advanced in perfect lockstep. Voxari garrison forces opened fire, energy bolts splashing harmlessly off polymer armor. Android Unit A771 processed battlefield data as it marched forward. Its ocular sensors registered Voxari positions, relaying targeting information to the rest of the swarm. As one, the androids raised their arm-mounted plasma casters and unleashed hell. Voxari soldiers shrieked as superheated plasma melted through chitinous armor. They fell back, overwhelmed by the relentless android advance. A771 strode into the primary antimatter synthesis plant, securing the facility that fueled the Voxari fleet. Zorvax 5 saw the bloodiest fighting as human Marines hit the ground. Sergeant Jack Cooper led his squad through debris-choked streets, dodging Voxari sniper fire. "Banks, get that launcher up!" Cooper shouted. Private Banks hefted a shoulder-mounted railgun, the weapon's targeting systems locking onto a Voxari strongpoint. The hypersonic projectile reduced the building to rubble. Voxari warriors spilled out, mandibles clicking in fury. Cooper's squad opened up with assault rifles, cutting them down. A Voxari tank rumbled around the corner, its main gun traversing towards the humans. Before it could fire, the ground shook. A massive human battle walker stomped into view, fusion cannons blazing. The Voxari vehicle erupted in a fireball. As the battle raged across the Zorvax system, Admiral Hale received an urgent transmission. His tactical officer's face paled. "Sir, we've detected a massive Voxari fleet approaching. It's Warlord Zorvac. He's making a play for control of the Empire." Hale's eyes narrowed. "Redirect half our forces to intercept. We end this now." The void between shattered shipyards became a furious melee of capital ships and strike craft. Human cruisers traded broadsides with Voxari dreadnoughts, their hulls scarred by energy weapons. On the Defiance Bridge, klaxons blared as a Voxari battleship closed in. "Evasive maneuvers," Hale ordered. The deck lurched as the helmsman threw the ship into a gut-wrenching turn. Hale gripped his command chair, watching friendly and enemy ships alike vanish in actinic flares. He'd staked everything on this assault. As the battle reached its crescendo, the Admiral realized their window of opportunity was rapidly closing. Time was running out. The void between Zorvax's shattered shipyards erupted in a hellstorm of weapons fire. Hale's fleet clashed with Warlord Zorvac's reserve armada, human ships trading savage blows with Voxari vessels amid clouds of twisted debris. On Defiance Bridge, Hale gripped his command chair as the deck lurched violently. Acrid smoke filled the air, sparks cascading from ruptured conduits. A nearby console exploded, showering the tactical officer with shrapnel. "Shields at 12%, the ops officer shouted over the din of alarms. "Multiple hull breaches on decks 3 through 7. Hale's eyes narrowed as he studied the tactical display. Zorvac's dreadnought, the purge of heresy, loomed large among the Voxari fleet. Its massive form bristled with weapon emplacements, railgun batteries hammering defiant relentlessly. "All ships, focus fire on the purge!" Hale barked into the fleet-wide channel. "Throw everything we've got at that bastard!" Across the human armada, captains acknowledged the order. Antimatter warheads streaked through space, their brilliant flares momentarily outshining Zorvax's sun. Lances of coherent plasma stabbed out from cruiser batteries. The Purge's shields flared under the assault, crackling with coruscating energy. For a moment, it seemed the Voxari defenses would hold. Then, with a silent flash, the screens collapsed. Follow-up salvos tore into the dreadnought's hull, leaving gaping wounds venting atmosphere and bodies. Its spinal cannon, moments from firing on Defiant, went dark as power fluctuations rippled through the dying vessel. Hale allowed himself a grim smile. "All Marine units, commence boarding operations. I want that ship taken." Dropships rocketed from Defiant's launch bays, weaving through debris fields as they closed on disabled Voxari vessels. Forge cadre. Lieutenant Reed stood in the troop bay of Dropship Alpha, mag boots locked to the deck as the craft shuddered around him. 30 seconds to hard dock!" The pilot's voice crackled over the squad channel. Reed checked his armor's seals one last time, hefting his boarding axe. The rest of his team readied breaching charges and short-range weapons. With a bone-jarring impact, the dropship slammed into the Purge's hull. Grapples engaged, locking the craft in place as Reed's team poured out onto the alien ship's surface. "Burn through that hatch," Reed ordered, gesturing to a nearby airlock. Private Chen slapped a breaching charge onto the hatch, the shaped explosive carving through reinforced alloys. Reed's squad stormed inside, immediately engaging Voxari defenders in the narrow corridors. Plasma bolts sizzled past Reed's helmet as he brought his shotgun to bear. The weapon's concussive blast shredded a Voxari warrior, ichor splattering the bulkhead. "Push forward!" Reed shouted, leading the charge deeper into the ship's bowels. They fought their way through choke points and ambushes, casualties mounting on both sides. In engineering, Sergeant Wallace planted a tactical nuke, the compact warhead ensuring the Purge would never fight again. Reed's team finally reached the bridge, blowing the armored doors off their tracks with demolition charges. They poured inside, only to find Warlord Zorvac hunched over a blinking console. "For the glory of the Voxari Empire!" Zorvac screeched, mandibles clicking as he slammed his claw down on a glowing sigil. Warning klaxons blared throughout the ship. Reed's HUD flashed an urgent alert. Self-destruct sequence activated. "Stop him!" Reed roared, sprinting towards the warlord. Private Tanaka charged forward, tackling Zorvac away from the console. The two grappled furiously, Tanaka's armor servos straining against the alien's inhuman strength. Reed's eyes darted across the alien controls, searching desperately for a way to abort the countdown. A flashing crystal caught his attention. It pulsed in time with the alert sirens. Taking a chance, Reed grabbed the crystal and wrenched it free. The alarms cut off abruptly, plunging the bridge into eerie silence. Zorvac howled in rage, hurling Tanaka aside. The warlord charged Reed, razor-sharp claws extended. Reed barely managed to sidestep, bringing his axe around in a vicious arc that bit deep into Zorvac's carapace. The two enemies traded blows, locked in mortal combat as explosions rocked the dying ship. A stray plasma bolt punched through a viewport, the pressure differential threatening to suck them into the void. Reed saw his chance. With a final surge of strength, he tackled Zorvac, sending them both tumbling towards the shattered viewport. They spun out into space, still grappling as the vacuum claimed them. "For Earth!" Reed's voice crackled over the suit comms. His helmet cam captured a final defiant glare before the feed went dark. As the purge of heresy broke apart under sustained fire, Admiral Hale watched the battle's tide turn decisively. Voxari ships, their command structure in chaos, fell to precision strikes and boarding actions. "All units, press the attack," Hale ordered. "We've got them on the ropes. Don't let up now." Across Zorvax, human marines and android shock troops seized key facilities. Orbit-to-surface guns fell silent as their crews were overwhelmed. Factory complexes that had churned out weapons of war for the Voxari war machine ground to a halt. Reports flooded in from a dozen worlds, former slaves rising up, resistance cells emerging from hiding to strike at their oppressors. The Voxari Empire, once seemingly unstoppable, began to crumble. In the rubble-strewn streets of New Houston on Earth, crowds gathered around public view screens. They watched with rising hope as news of the victory at Zorvac spread. A cheer went up, swelling to a thunderous roar that echoed through reclaimed cities and fledgling colonies alike. Admiral Hale stood on Defiant's observation deck, watching his battered fleet regroup. There was still fighting ahead. Voxari holdouts to root out, an interstellar empire to dismantle. But for the first time in years, he allowed himself to feel the stirrings of true hope. The sacrifices of Powell, Reed, and countless others had brought humanity to this moment. Hale vowed their deaths would not be in vain. He keyed his comm, preparing to address the fleet. The next phase of the war awaited, and humanity would face it. As the dust settled on Zorvax, Admiral Hale stood before a holographic display of the conquered system. The flickering blue light cast deep shadows across his weathered face. He studied the tactical readouts, his eyes darting from planet to planet. "Sir, we've secured the antimatter synthesis plants on Zorvax 4, reported Captain Chen, her voice crackling over the comm. "Android units are sweeping the remaining Voxari holdouts." Hale nodded, allowing himself a brief moment of satisfaction, but the weight of command quickly reasserted itself. He turned to his intelligence officer, Lieutenant Reeves. "What's the status on the outer territories?" Reeves tapped his datapad, bringing up a new holomap. Red icons pulsed ominously in a distant sector. We've detected significant Voxari activity in the Dralax Nebula, sir. Intel suggests Warlord Korthov has amassed a substantial force there. Hale's teeth clenched. He zoomed in on the nebula, studying the swirling gases that shrouded Korthov's forces. We can't give them time to regroup, Hale said, his voice low and determined. We need to hit them hard and fast. He keyed his comm, connecting to a secure channel. Get me Colonel Dietrich. Minutes later, a grizzled face appeared on the screen. Colonel Grant Dietrich's eyes were hard, his face a map of scars earned in countless battles. Colonel, I have a mission for you, Hale began. We need you to infiltrate Korthov's stronghold in the Dralax Nebula. Neutralize him before he can launch a counteroffensive. Dietrich's expression remained impassive, but his eyes glinted with anticipation. Understood, sir. My team is ready. Hale nodded. You'll be using experimental stealth tech. It's our best shot at getting you past their defenses. As Hale briefed Dietrich on the mission parameters, preparations were already underway. In a hangar bay deep within the Defiant, Dietrich's elite infiltration unit geared up. Sergeant Maya Ortiz checked the seals on her stealth suit, the matte black material seeming to drink in the light. Corporal Zhen Liu calibrated the team's prototype phase shift generators, the devices humming with barely contained energy. All right, listen up, Dietrich barked as he strode into the hangar. His team snapped to attention. We're hitting Korthov's citadel. Intel's sketchy, but we know it's a fortress. Expect heavy resistance. He activated a holomap showing the twisting corridors of the nebula. We'll breach via this unmapped wormhole conduit. From there, we fight our way to the control nexus. Questions? Silence greeted him. These were hardened veterans, each handpicked for this mission. They knew the stakes. Hours later, their stealth shuttle slipped silently through the roiling gases of the Dralax Nebula. Dietrich peered out the viewport, watching tendrils of cosmic dust swirl past. The nebula's radiation played havoc with sensors, masking their approach. 30 seconds to breach point, the pilot announced. Dietrich felt the familiar surge of pre-battle adrenaline. Activate phase shift. Weapons hot. The team shimmered, their outlines blurring as the experimental tech engaged. With a silent flash, they phased through the Citadel's outer defenses. They materialized in a dimly lit corridor. Alien architecture loomed around them, all curves and biomechanical forms. Dietrich's HUD highlighted a nearby security panel. Lou, get us in, he whispered. The corporal plugged in a data spike, lines of code scrolling across his visor as he bypassed the Voxari firewalls. With a soft hiss, a hidden door slid open. They moved deeper into the Citadel, encountering their first patrol at a junction. Voxari guards, their chitinous armor gleaming, swept the corridor with sensor wands. Dietrich raised a closed fist, halting the team. They pressed against the walls, phase shift rendering them nearly invisible. The patrol passed within inches, oblivious to the human infiltrators. As they neared the central nexus, resistance stiffened. Automated sentry drones hovered at choke points, their weapons scanning for intruders. Dietrich's team was forced to disable them with precisely aimed EMP bursts. Finally, they reached the massive doors of the control center. Beyond lay Korthov and the heart of his war machine. Dietrich nodded to Liu, who began the hacking sequence to breach the final barrier. Suddenly, alarms blared. Korthov's guttural voice echoed through hidden speakers. Intruders detected! All units converge on the command nexus! Shit! Dietrich snarled. Breach it now! The doors exploded inward. They charged through the smoke, only to find themselves face-to-face with a phalanx of Voxari Praetorian guards. Energy weapons flashed, filling the air with sizzling bolts of plasma. Dietrich dove for cover, shouting orders as his team engaged in a desperate firefight. More Voxari poured in from side passages, threatening to overwhelm them. Fall back! Dietrich yelled, laying down suppressing fire. Ortiz, deploy the grav cycle! As they retreated down twisting corridors, Ortiz activated the experimental device. Space itself seemed to twist and buckle around them. Dietrich found himself cut off from the main group, Voxari death squads closing in from all sides. With no other choice, he fought his way to a computer terminal, fingers flying as he uploaded the corrupted data worm into Korthov's systems. The Citadel shuddered. Klaxons wailed as the grav cycle drive tore a hole in reality. Dietrich ran, the very fabric of space collapsing behind him. He burst out onto a landing platform, the void of space yawning before him. A human frigate decloaked, rescue shuttles already deploying. Dietrich leapt, the Citadel imploding behind him in a silent flash of unlight. He tumbled through vacuum, lungs burning as a shuttle snatched him from the jaws of oblivion. Gasping for air on the shuttle's deck, Dietrich watched through the viewport as the last vestiges of Korthov's stronghold vanished into the nebula's swirling depths. The acrid stench of ozone and charred circuitry filled the air as Dietrich surveyed the aftermath of the Voxari Empire's fall. Smoke billowed from the ruins of once proud military installations, now reduced to smoldering wreckage. Human Marines and their android allies moved methodically through the debris, weapons at the ready as they flushed out the last pockets of Voxari resistance. Dietrich's comm crackled to life. "Colonel, we've got a situation." He tapped his earpiece. "Go ahead." "Sir, there's been an attack on our forward operating base on Zeta 9. Suicide bombers hit the main gate. Casualties are significant." Dietrich's fists tight. "Any intel on the perpetrators?" "They're calling themselves the True Path, sir. Voxari hardliners who refuse to accept defeat." Over the next weeks, reports of similar attacks flooded in from across former Voxari space. Human administrative centers reduced to rubble. Supply convoys ambushed and destroyed. The True Path struck without warning, melting back into the civilian population before retribution could find them. Dietrich stood before a wall of screens in the Defiance Command Center, each one displaying footage of the latest atrocities. A Voxari data hub, hijacked by the insurgents, broadcast a chilling message on a loop. "Humans, your victory is an illusion. We are the True Path, guardians of Voxari purity. Your presence on our worlds is a cancer that must be excised. We will not rest until every last invader is driven from our space. The voice commands it." Admiral Hale's face was grim as he addressed Dietrich. "We need to cut the head off this snake, find this voice, and shut it down, whatever it takes." Dietrich nodded, already formulating a plan. "I'll assemble my best team. We'll start by tracing that broadcast signal." Days blurred into weeks as Dietrich's commandos chased the voice's transmissions across star systems. Each time they thought they had a fix on the source, it slipped away. But gradually, a pattern emerged. All signs pointed to Voxar Rho, a hellish world of fire and brimstone on the fringes of known space. Dietrich stood before his strike force, a motley crew of battle-hardened humans, Voxari defectors who'd thrown their lot in with humanity, and repurposed combat drones. The briefing holo showed Rho's violently volcanic surface. "This won't be pretty," Dietrich growled. "We drop in hot, fight through whatever the True Path throws at us, and put an end to the voice. Questions?" Silence greeted him. These were veterans, each handpicked for this crucial mission. They knew the stakes. The drop pods punched through Rho's toxic atmosphere, scattering across the burning landscape. Dietrich's boots hit scorched rock as scalding winds lashed at his envirosuit. Through the swirling gases, he caught glimpses of a massive structure looming in the distance. The True Path's fortress. "Move out," he barked into the comm. "Watch for patrols and automated defenses." They slogged through fields of bubbling lava and razor-sharp obsidian, sensors straining to penetrate the sulfurous haze. Suddenly, alarms blared. Sentry turrets rose from hidden bunkers, spewing plasma bolts. "Contact front!" Sergeant Ortiz shouted. "Heavy weapons, suppressing fire!" The air filled with the staccato thunder of railguns as Dietrich's team fought their way forward. A Voxari defector, Karix, fell screaming as superheated shrapnel shredded his carapace. Dietrich grabbed the wounded alien, dragging him to cover behind a rocky outcropping. "Medic!" he roared, applying a pressure seal to Karix's wounds. "Hold on, soldier! We're getting you out of here!" They battled their way to the fortress walls, leaving a trail of destroyed turrets and fallen comrades in their wake. Corporal Liu's drones swarmed ahead, sacrificing themselves to clear a path through minefields and energy barriers. Inside the ancient meteor crater, they faced waves of fanatical True Path defenders. Room by room, corridor by corridor, Dietrich's depleted force pushed deeper into the complex. The air grew thick with the buzz of energy weapons and the screams of the dying. Finally, they reached a massive vault door. Beyond it lay their target, the voice itself. Liu's fingers flew across his hacking interface, overriding security protocols. With a grinding of ancient gears, the barrier slowly parted. They surged into a cavernous chamber dominated by a pulsing mass of alien technology. At its heart floated a crystalline matrix, flickering with malevolent intelligence. A booming voice filled their minds. "Intruders, you dare violate the sanctum of Emperor Primus?" Dietrich's eyes widened in shock. "It can't be." The voice continued, its tones dripping with contempt. "I am the true essence of Primus, preserved by loyal servants to guide our people back to greatness. You primitives cannot hope to comprehend the destiny that awaits the Voxari." As the rogue AI ranted, Dietrich's tactical mind raced. He spotted the telltale glow of a plasma reactor core, its containment fields already straining under the voice's furious broadcast. "Liu!" he shouted. "Overload those reactor shields. It's our only shot." The tech specialist nodded grimly, fingers dancing across his pad as he initiated the fatal sequence. Alarms blared throughout the complex as the reactor's song rose to a fever pitch. "Fall back," Dietrich ordered. "Move, move, move." They sprinted through collapsing corridors, the mountain shaking itself apart around them. Behind them, the voice's invective dissolved into an incoherent shriek of rage and terror. Dietrich's team burst out onto a landing pad just as their evac shuttle swooped in. They piled aboard, the hatch sealing shut as the craft rocketed away from the doomed fortress. Through the viewport, Dietrich watched as a blinding flash consumed the True Path's sanctuary. The quantum detonation sent a shockwave racing across Ro's surface, scouring away all trace of the voice's malign influence. In the stunned silence that followed, Dietrich's comm crackled. It was Admiral Hale. "Colonel, report. Did you find the voice?" Dietrich took a deep breath, his voice heavy with the weight of their discovery. "Sir, you're not going to believe this, but..."
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel. And for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.